Right, it is less than a month to Cheltenham at this point, and every Thursday we've been checking in with Thom Malone for our countdown to Cheltenham. Good morning, Tom.
Hey, Owen, how are you? You well?
Yeah, not too bad. So there's plenty happening, and we're actually going to start with matters outside of Cheltenham because Tiger Roll and the Grand National weights have been announced. The question, and it's been a 2-year-long question, is he going to run?
Yeah, look, I would say we'll have to actually see what happens at Cheltenham first, and he'll run in the cross country. And if the going is pretty good at Cheltenham, he will have a good chance. But yeah, he's been given just a kind of a pound off top weight, which is a big ask. He's going to carry 11 stone 9. It's again with the handicapping of the Grand National, it's a bit weird because you have to try and rate races like the cross country on par with previous Grand Nationals, which are obviously completely unique, and then horses that are going to run the Gold Cup, the likes of Bristol, Demai, and Santini, and in a Gold Cup, Tiger Roll would not be mapped. That is just he'd struggle to get around, and then you're trying to think, well, should he carry almost level weights with those horses who are genuinely going to contend in a race like that? So that's the kind of puzzle for the handicapper to solve. He's given him a pound off top weight, and the horse that beat him in the cross country last year is going to carry pretty much joint top weight as well, Easy's Land. So, but looks things once again, it will be a question of what happens at the cross country this year at Cheltenham. But look, I think he'll run. He kind of has nothing else, and if he shows any form of life at all at Cheltenham, I think he'll run the Grand National. Keith Donoghue last year on him was very, very conservative on him when he knew he was going to be beaten at Cheltenham, and said, look, we'll hold on to him and wait. The ground was against him. He's had 1 or 2 little injuries. He had a little problem with his stifle after he came back from the Cheltenham meeting in November, when he obviously had a little luck. But if you follow Gordon Elliott or Keith Donoghue on social media, you'll see Tiger Roll's been out and about a lot more than most of us over the last few weeks. He's been out at the beach, he's been at Cheltenham, he's been at Sally Corscadden's practicing his cross-country methods. So, yeah, Tiger Roll should be ready for Cheltenham. And look, if all goes to plan there, he will run the Grand National. If things don't go to plan at Cheltenham, I would imagine he would be retired.
Tom, I was just reading some comments from Michael O'Leary in the last day or two around Tiger Roll, and he kind of spoke about how his last couple of runs have suggested he's maybe not in love with the game anymore, according to Michael O'Leary, and how he's a small horse and the priority is to mind him. Were you surprised by comments like that from Michael O'Leary? Maybe not, given who said them, but and also, I guess, he also mentioned the Irish Grand National as a possibility, given that the handicapping might actually favour Tiger Roll a little bit better in that race.
I'd be amazed if he'd go for the Irish Grand National, just because the fences in Aintree actually suit Tiger Roll. He is quite a small horse. He's an athletic horse, but he jumps quite low and fast. And if you tried to do that in Fairyhouse, like, the fences are just too big. It's genuinely unlikely he'd get round in the same way. He's an incredibly brave and risky jumper in that he just gets quite low and fast over them, almost like a hurdle. And in Aintree, the fences, they have all that, like, it looks like kind of Christmas tree cuttings on the top of them, and the horses can just kind of brush their belly through the top of them, and that just makes such a big difference, because horses who are inexperienced at Aintree actually use up too much energy by over jumping. These fences look big, but they're actually not solid through the middle. They're soft in the top. So when you jump a fence at Aintree, the ideal thing is for his horse to just kind of flick through the top of it and then keep his momentum. Whereas horses who are inexperienced at Aintree will go too fast too early. They'll come into the first fence, which is actually quite big and wide, and they'll jump up and then down hard, and they lose all momentum. And if you think about that over the course of 22 fences, if you lose half a length at each, you're losing upwards of 12 lengths. So, like, when you have that level of efficiency where you're landing, running all the time, as is the case with Tiger Roll, he knows his way around. So that is just such a huge advantage. And again, it's why it's so difficult for the handicapper to assess him, because in a normal weights and measures situation, there is no way on earth the horse is a 168 horse. Like I say, he would not be mapped in an Irish Gold Cup or a Cheltenham Gold Cup on that rating. But he's a different horse in the cross country at Cheltenham, and he's a very different horse in the Aintree Grand National.
It sounds that if you were a Tiger Roll connection, you'd be a little bit raging by what the handicappers have done.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be very annoyed because one of the reasons he's got such, apart from his two Grand National wins, one of the reasons he has such a high rating is his performance in the cross country at Cheltenham the year before last. But the races turned out to be absolutely terrible on a form. Like, only one horse has won from that race since. And then the horse that beat him, Easy's Land, last year, well, the handicapper's gone and said, we can't drop Tiger Roll. So Easy's Land has to now go and be kind of top weight in a Grand National, which again seems slightly nonsensical. Look, there's lots in there. I think Burroughs saying for Willie Mullins will probably end up favourite for the Grand National itself. There's lots of really good horses in it because Tiger Roll and Easy's Land have actually such big weights and there are such high quality horses in there. There are one or two lurking around that will certainly be very, like, while Tiger Roll and Connections won't be happy with the weights they've gotten, there are a few slightly further down who'll be happy enough that. See, the thing is about Grand National horses, they have really quiet campaigns until the weights come out, and then they're allowed to sort of go and get their fitness up. So over the next couple of weekends, we'll probably get a few clues as to the well-being of one or two of those potential Grand National horses.
Tiger Roll is the most spoken about horse on this show, maybe more spoken about than the likes of Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo at times. And
yeah,
it's going to continue for the next little while. Benny Desjeux, there's been big news this week.
Yeah, poor Benny Desjeux, she's going to miss the Cheltenham Festival. So obviously she won the Mares Hurdle a couple of years ago. She was half of that epic battle with Honeysuckle last year in the Mares Hurdle. So she had a couple of options this year. There were kind of whispers and rumours and everything has been denied a couple of weeks ago that things weren't all well with her. But look, Willie Mullins came out and made the announcement there during the week that all is not well with Benny Desjeux and she's not going to make it. Another one who's not going to make it as well, unfortunately, is, as I tipped up in this show, Delta Work. He's not going to make the Gold Cup. So again, talking about Michael O'Leary, the significance of that is that's Michael O'Leary running out of chances to win another Gold Cup. I mean, they're winding down their racehorse operation at this stage. And, Delta Work looked like one of the sort of last chances to really win a Gold Cup. They've 4 left in the race, and really you'd be surprised if any of them even run. But like I said, that the wind down of Michael O'Leary in racing and that big kind of handover of power is happening over the next sort of 18 or so months in the sport. And I think this will be the last Cheltenham of relevance for Jigginstown, really.
What are you looking at now for the Gold Cup then? You're like, I was checking the odds this morning, Album Photo, Plus still the favourites. Does the Delta Work injury change your thinking dramatically?
It changes slightly, yeah. We're going to have a weird weekend. We're going to have Champ, who's kind of 3rd or 4th in the market. He's going to run over an inadequate trip of 2 miles this weekend just to give him a really sharp prep for the Gold Cup. I'm still a friend of Santini, even though he was beaten the other week at Sandown in that rescheduled celebration chase at 14-1. I think he's a great chance. It's very boring, but there's very little to put anyone off Album Photo. He's had an ideal prep. He's had the same, route he's taken as last year. The horses that looked like they could have been threats this time last year to him have all kind of fallen off the map. And the only obvious emerging dangers we can see, maybe Champ, but he hasn't run since Cheltenham last year. Aplutar, obviously very eye-catching at Leopardstown at Christmas, but he's never won over the trip. He's never, like, that win at Leopardstown was his first win over 3 miles, so he has to step up and trip again. And then there's another horse called Royal Pagaille, who's trained by Venetia Williams. He's an up-and-coming force, but he could potentially run in the novice event as well, although he is in the same colours as Monkfish, so that would seem unlikely. And then beyond that, you're at the kind of, Native River, he won the Gold Cup before Album Photo did. Yes, he came back, but he'll need very much like a very, very soft. If Lost in Translation could bounce back this weekend, that'd be interesting. But I genuinely can't see much past the 1st and 2nd last year of Album Photo and Santini. There's been nothing, maybe bar Aplutar, who's really come out and rattled the cage in the sort of year since last year's Gold Cup.
Tom, I know we haven't touched on the Novice Hurdle division, so maybe we might get into that a little bit as an early look ahead to Cheltenham. But maybe if we start with the Supreme Novices Hurdle, and it's going to be a strange one this year. Normally we have the usual Cheltenham roar, first race of the festival, fans going mad. We won't have that this year, of course, but you've been taking a look at Appreciated as maybe one to watch here, and presumably Paul Townend gets the pick on that horse as well. Yeah,
you would think so. I mean, is Cheltenham even Cheltenham without that Tuesday roar before the Supreme? Look, Willie Mullins, the thing is we do have is, a Willie Mullins trained favourite for the Supreme. So you go back to, there's like the Vautours and Mins and Champagne Fevers. Appreciated is a horse I absolutely love. And the thing is as well, he's done nothing wrong, really, apart from get beaten in the Cheltenham Festival bumper last year. I would say we could end up with maybe one or two horses coming out over the next couple of weeks to challenge him. But the only one I saw in the sort of last couple of weeks, even though he's kind of already beaten him, is the Devil's Coachman for Noel Meade, who looked really, really impressive and put a really nice time figure when winning last week. So the Devil's Coachman is one potential danger, but really appreciated. There will be no roar at Cheltenham, but the roars in the living rooms and whatever other method we can use to watch Cheltenham, the roof will be coming off, because appreciated is going to be the cornerstone of so many Irish bankers, Irish multiples, and he's been incredibly impressive in those, particularly his last two runs at Leopardstown, those two Grade 1s.
Is there a common theme you're looking for in the Novice Hurdle division? A horse that fits the bill across all the various races in that division at Cheltenham. Is there a way to crack this race, or those races, when you're putting your eye on the races?
I mean, like, the thing, generally the big stables do dominate the likes of the Supreme and the Ballymore. Ballymore first race on Wednesday. Again, Willie Mullins is the warm order favourite there with Gaillard de Meny. The thing is, you're looking for a horse that's shown you enough in the race course so far, but you still think probably has another 7 to 10 pounds of improvement in there as well. There's a horse called Brave. Also, trainers are creatures of habit. You know, when they have one good horse, they kind of like to do the same thing with it over and over and over again. So, you know, Willie Mullins used to use the likes of the Moscow Flyer Hurdle at Punchestown quite a lot. Maybe not so much now, because there's a new race at Naas, and obviously the importance of the Dublin Racing Festival. So, you know, habits do change slightly, but one notable one is that the last time Paul Nicholls won the Challow Hurdle in the UK was with a horse called Denman, who turned out to be pretty decent. And he did the same this year with Brave Man's Game, who won that Challow Hurdle by 10 lengths. And he's about 5-1 for the Ballymore on Wednesday. So I certainly wouldn't be putting anyone off backing him. Actually, I think when we spoke at Christmas, I mentioned him as well. So I'm still very much on the Brave Man's Game bandwagon, because he looked really, really impressive in winning that Challow Hurdle. And he's another one. He's just going straight to Cheltenham from that race as well. So we know where he's at. The Albert Bartlett's on the Friday. I'm not even going to go into that because it's such a difficult race. We've had like sort of 50-1 winners and 66-1 winners over the last couple of years. So on the day, that's a race where very exposed types can actually win it. So it's actually not my kind of race at all. And then the Triumph Hurdle is technically not a novice, but it's for 4-year-olds. And Gordon Elliott has just the most brilliant hand to play in that. He's got Zana here, who looks a brilliant 4-year-old. And then he's also got Quilixios, who carries the same colours as Envoy LN, very expensive purchase. And he was the Grade 1 winner at Leopardstown, the Dublin Racing Festival. They dominate the top of the market there. Gordon Elliott's brilliant team of 4-year-olds, but keep an eye on whatever, Nick. There's a hurdle coming up over the next week or so called the Adonis Hurdle at Kempton, and that's generally the best trial for the Triumph. Nicky Henderson usually sends a really good 4-year-old for that, so keep an eye out for that as well. But yeah, that's just kind of a quick run through for the novices. But generally, you know, we always have that really strong favourite for the Supreme on Tuesday. There's often a kind of an Irish banker for the Ballymore on Wednesday. Think of the likes of Samcro and that over the years. Envoy LN last year, Isterbrak back years ago as well. The Albert Bartlett's impossible. And then the Triumph looks to be Gordon Elliott's this year.
Tom, can I just mention, you've pretty much answered the question anyway on the Albert Bartlett, but I get, and a lot of punters will have PTSD speaking about the Albert Bartlett every year. It's, as you mentioned, a bit of a minefield. Are there any trends we can look at? Because even looking at last year's winner, Monkfish, and Manila Indo the previous year, relatively inexperienced. Manila Indo hadn't even won over hurdles at the time.
Yeah.
But in years, I guess, before that, it was always a horse that had won over hurdles, or at least stayed the course over hurdles. So can you spot any trends in reading something like the Albert Bartlett, or is it literally a case of stay clear?
No, the Albert Bartlett is a race because it's so punishing. It can actually, if you find one that has a lot more experience, I think a horse like maybe Fakira, who's in there at the moment, who's actually run quite a lot. It's a very strong test. It's 3 miles for a novice, which is actually quite a big ask. So generally, you're going to look for a bit of proven stamina. So maybe something that's come from the point-to-point sphere. I've maybe had a couple of runs over point-to-points, but the big thing for me generally, I would always look for something at a bit of a price and having a bit of experience coming from the point-to-point sphere, because you just need so much stamina for that Albert Bartlett. And the weird thing as well, that they're kind of an unfashionable horse once they come out of it as well. Yes, we had the likes of Monkfish and Manila Indo. They're obviously going to go on and look and be strong novice chasers, staying novice chasers. But, it can be won by a sort of just bit of a slow one. You know what I mean? Like, Gordon Elliott's had some really good horses beaten in the Albert Bartlett who have turned out to be really good horses in time. So he's kind of moved away from sending his better novices down that route and prefers something like the Ballymore, which is shorter trip and it's just not as taxing. So look, you need a horse who has that bit of experience and that bit of obvious toughness, and look, will stay that very punishing 3 miles.